Most trucks are built for the commute, but you are looking at the illegal 10,000-pound monster banned from auctions, the Kaiser M715. This is not just a Jeep, it is a 5-quarter-ton tactical weapon built for the jungles of Vietnam and the brutal requirements of nuclear war. In the late 1960s, the military realized they did not need a vehicle that followed the rules of civilian safety. They needed a 5-quarter monster that could carry a literal ton of ammunition through a minefield. The result was a machine so structurally violent that for years the government tried to scrub them from the public market. It has an overhead cam tornado heart, no key for the ignition, and a 24-volt electrical system that can survive a total grid collapse. But there is a secret hidden in the death wobble of its portal axle design that made this truck a legal liability. Why was the toughest Jeep ever forged considered too dangerous for the American citizen? Inside the Pentagon, the Army's rapid deployment memo landed with the weight of a new era. The Dodge M37, once reliable, was now a relic, bogged down in Vietnam's mud, outpaced by the demands of Cold War doctrine. The Army needed a truck that could carry a 2,500-kilogram payload, keep gross weight under 4,800 kilograms, and survive being shoved out the back of a C-130 Hercules. No frills, no civilian comforts, just a machine that could haul ammo, fuel, and a full squad straight off the ramp, ready for combat. The doctrine was clear: speed, payload, and survivability mattered more than anything else. Material Command's evaluation matrix was ruthless. Frame strength, axle load, ground clearance, and resistance to electromagnetic pulses were all non-negotiable. The Gladiator pickup from Kaiser Jeep was the only American truck that came close, but even it needed a complete overhaul. The Army demanded a ladder frame that could shrug off a mine blast, leaf springs tough enough for a .50 caliber mount, and a 24-volt electrical system that could power field radios or recover from a nuclear pulse. Ignition was simplified to a push button and a dead man switch, no keys, no hesitation. The C-130 set the rules. If a truck could not be loaded, fueled, and airborne in minutes, it was useless. The payload target, 2,500 kilograms, was set in stone. The gross vehicle weight rating, capped at 4,800 kilograms, was stamped on every procurement file. These numbers forced engineers to strip away every ounce of excess: no sound deadening, no insulation, no unnecessary brackets, just steel, gear oil, canvas, and the mechanical whine of a Spicer transfer case. Kaiser's Gladiator was not alone in the running. Dodge and International Harvester submitted their own designs, but their trucks either sagged under load or failed the airlift requirement. The Gladiator, rebuilt for war, survived the Ordnance Test Center's trial: 5,000 kilometers of pounding, 95% reliability, no catastrophic failures. The decision chain followed Cold War logic: Colonel Robert Miller's requirement, Lieutenant General Stark's approval, and a contract in October 1966 for 20,680 trucks. Each was a paradox: civilian DNA militarized for the battlefield. The Army did not care about emissions or dealership appeal. They wanted a sledgehammer with a VIN, a machine that could be dropped into chaos and drive out under its own power. That was the M715's origin, a weapon system disguised as a pickup, built for payload, ground clearance, and the certainty that when the ramp dropped, American steel would hit the ground running. October 15, 1966. The Pentagon's contract room stank of pipe smoke and carbon paper, not the polished chrome and coffee you get in today's procurement offices. The paperwork hit the table: ORD 715, pages so dense with clauses and exclusions you could use them to chock a wheel. Right there, in black ink on page 7, was the heart of the matter. Contractor shall remove no less than 80% of all civilian-grade components, substituting ordnance-approved military parts as specified herein. That clause was a death sentence for comfort and a birth certificate for the M715's brutality. Out went the Gladiator's soft trim, the dash padding, the civilian radio, the turn signal stalks, even the wiring looms. Anything that could burn, short, or fail under field conditions, gone. The contract didn't just demand a truck, It demanded a weaponized chassis, stripped of every luxury, every shortcut. 80%. That's not a typo. That's the government telling Kaiser Jeep to take a sledgehammer to its own engineering playbook. The signature block is a roll call of Cold War brass. Stark, Miller, Parker. Each one left his mark on the variant split: 13,460 cargo haulers, 4,530 ambulances, 2,690 dump trucks. No room for error. The clause on page 12 made it official. No commercial brake lines, no civilian lighting assemblies, all electrical harnesses to be field repairable, 24-volt standard. That's why you'll never find a factory M715 with a dome light or a glove box. The Army wanted a truck that could be hosed out, welded in the mud, and rewired by a kid with a Leatherman and a spool of copper. Procurement officers don't get misty-eyed, but I've heard more than one admit the contract was a kind of scorched earth engineering. The Army's logic was simple. If a part wasn't built for shock, fire, or electromagnetic pulse, it had no business in the field. The M715 was born into a world where fragility was a liability, and every ounce of civilian convenience was a future casualty. The clause didn't just shape the truck, it set the booby trap for every collector and restorer who came after. 80% civilian parts gone means 80% of what you'd find at Napa or under a modern Gladiator hood is useless. You want to keep one of these monsters alive? You're hunting for obsolete connectors and military surplus bins, not Amazon Prime. That was the real genius and the real curse of ORD 715. It locked the M715 into a world of its own, a parallel universe of steel and voltage, forever cut off from the soft plastic future that followed. So when people ask why this truck is illegal, why it vanished from surplus auctions, you can point to the contract itself. The evidence is right there, stamped and initialed. A machine built to fight a war, not to win friends in the suburbs. That's not just history. That's the sound of a procurement officer reading aloud, voice flat and final. 80%, field repairable only, no civilian substitutions allowed. The M715's Tornado 230 overhead, cam straight 6 is all business, cast iron, steel, and a temperament that does not care about comfort or forgiveness. 140 horsepower at 3,600 RPM, 300 pound-feet of torque peaking at 2,200, and a torque curve so steady it is almost stubborn. The camshaft sits up top, running a valve lash so tight, 0.005 inches, field spec, that even the smallest error is a warning. Miss that setting, and the cam starts eating its own followers. There is no margin for error. This is a sledgehammer with the appetite of a Swiss watch, demanding a mechanic's patience in the worst conditions. Engine ticking, exhaust hissing, the whole truck alive and vibrating, every adjustment is a test of nerve and skill. Valve lash on the Tornado is not a weekend chore. The block needs to be hot, sweating under the hood. The cover comes off, and a feeler gauge slides under the cam lobe, 0.005, no more, no less. The manual claims 30 minutes, but in the field, it is all by feel. Every 1,000 miles of mud and artillery shock, the lash drifts. Miss the interval, and the valve seats burn, cam lobes pit, and you are stripping the head in the rain, tools slick with oil. There is no forgiveness. This is not a small block with hydraulic lifters. The Tornado is sharp edges, cold steel, and consequences. The push-button starter sits where a civilian might expect a radio. No key, no immobilizer, just a fat switch that dumps two 12-volt batteries in series straight into a 24-volt starter. Hit the button, and the relay snaps shut, pulling 250 amps in a single surge, enough to weld a wrench to the frame if you are careless. The starter does not whine, it growls, spinning the flywheel with a force that feels almost reckless. There is a safety interlock. The starter will not engage unless the transmission is in neutral. That is as gentle as this truck gets. The 24-volt system is wartime logic made real. Two lead-acid batteries wired in series feed a dual-circuit panel, fuses thick enough to survive a lightning strike. The main fuse is 40 amps, the lighting circuits run on 10s, and the radio harness is shielded by a dedicated 10-amp fuse. The voltage regulator is mechanical, not digital, no chips to fry. There is a night dimming switch that drops the lights to 12 volts, a blackout feature for rolling through contested ground. Every wire is field repairable, every harness can be cut, spliced, and soldered with whatever is at hand. The system is EMP-proof by accident, not design. No computers, no sensors, just hands and the smell of hot insulation. Under the hood, it's all stamped brackets, braided cables, and mechanical switches. No plastic, no foam, no sound deadening. The only luxury is knowing that if a nuke goes off, the M715 might keep running after everything else is silent. But the Tornado engine punishes neglect. Let the lash drift and the cam will hammer itself to pieces. The field manual says, check lash every 1,500 miles, ignore that, and you are walking. Indestructible yet fragile, precision is survival. This is the edge of American iron, running hot, loud, and just a little bit angry. Power means nothing if you cannot put it to the ground. That is where the M715's drivetrain draws a hard line between civilian comfort and military doctrine. Beneath the cab, the Spicer SC2 transfer case is bolted straight to the frame. No electronics, no vacuum lines, just steel levers and raw intent. Range and engagement are handled by hand, not circuit. High range is a direct 1-to-1. But drop it into low, and you are looking at a 2.7 2-to-1 ratio, enough to make the truck squat and dig in, ready to haul a full load through mud, rock, or jungle. The gears sing their own warning, a mechanical growl that says you are about to ask a lot from every bolt and bearing. The real advantage comes from the portal axles. Civilian trucks hug the ground, but the M715 stands tall on a Dana 60 up front and a Dana 70 in the rear, both fitted with portal hubs that raise the differential a full 6 inches above the wheel center. That is 28 inches of ground clearance, more than a Humvee, more than most modern off-roaders. Inside each hub, portal gears multiply torque and keep the driveline tucked safely above the worst terrain. The axles are thick-walled steel, every joint fitted with a grease nipple, every bearing stack designed for field repairs. Just a hammer and snap ring pliers will do. Hub bolts are torqued to 110 foot-pounds, no exceptions. Anything less and the assembly will walk under load, grinding itself to pieces. On the bench, the portal assembly looks more like artillery than automotive. Strip the hub and you are staring at a planetary reduction set, caked in black grease that smells of burnt oil and old battles. In the field, protocol is simple. Tighten until your shoulder aches, then go another quarter turn. That is how you keep the wheels on in a firefight or a flood. Every seal is overbuilt, every fitting designed to keep out mud, water, and the kind of silt that chews up lesser trucks. The transfer case is all steel gears and straight-cut teeth, no synchromesh, no forgiveness. Miss a shift and the lever kicks back, echoing through the floor. The lockout detent is there for a reason. You cannot drop into low at speed unless you are reckless or desperate. The case is filled with 90-weight gear oil, thick in winter, thin as soup in the jungle. Drain it and you will find metal flakes, each one a record of a missed shift or a hill conquered in high range. The body is just as blunt. The windshield folds down, not for looks, but so you can mount a .30 caliber or run blackout curtains. No wiper motor, just your own arm. The canvas top rips off in seconds for ambulance duty or a breath of air. The rear bumper is stamped steel, pintle hook in the center, NATO rated for towing. Every fitting is either overbuilt or brutally simple. If you break it, you fix it with a wrench and wire. But all that ground clearance comes at a price. The same portal geometry that lifts you above the rocks also sets up the steering for oscillation. Let the kingpin bushings wear or the hub bolts loosen and you will get death wobble, 7 Hz, enough to rip the wheel from your hands. The Army's fix? A stack of washers behind the steering knuckle bolts. Not elegant, but it works. True off-road superiority demands vigilance and busted knuckles. Modern trucks hide their flaws. The M715 puts them right in your hands. Steel and torque mean nothing when the floor is built in. The M715's death wobble is no myth. The Ordnance Test Center report, OTC 7042, pinned it at 7 Hz, a vibration that turns the front axle into a tuning fork, shaking the steering wheel until it rips free from your hands. Mechanics tried shims, washers, and bolt stacks, but nothing lasted. The real culprit hid in the kingpin bushings and the geometry, with portal hubs amplifying every bump. Army test footage shows the front end bucking, tires skipping sideways, the driver locked in a losing battle. Fire risk lurks under the hood. The starter draws 250 amps in a single surge. That is enough to weld metal if a wrench slips. The Department of Transportation FIV S71 bulletin warned that oil residue, a frayed cable, and one spark can ignite a fireball in a garage or field tent. Civilian trucks use 12 volts and fuses. The M715's 24-volt system is pure wartime logic. The ignition switch is a push button, no key, no immobilizer, just one wire, all or nothing. Mechanics and historians agree. This truck wasn't built for safety. Its flaws are scars from combat, not shortcuts. EPA docket. EPA 7502 isn't bedtime reading, it is a kill order. The Tornado 230 engine, raw and unfiltered, never saw a catalytic converter or an evaporative canister. The EPA's own language read, non-compliant with 1975 federal emission standards. Recommend withdrawal from public auction. That is not a suggestion. That is a government regulator slamming the file closed on the M715's civilian future. The General Services Administration followed with a memo that reads like a blacklist. The GSA liability list, circulated in 1981, names the M715, alongside chemical spill trucks and decommissioned bomb carriers. The language is clinical. Exclude from all public surplus sales. Safety equipment gaps, electrical fire risk, operational hazard, death wobble. The line for the M715 is struck through in the official auction inventory, delisted and non-compliant in block capitals. The fatal crash in Texas, 1979, sealed the coffin. A civilian owner, front axle bearings worn to dust, no steering damper, no warning. The truck snapped into a 7 Hz oscillation and left the road. The GSA's internal risk briefing pinned the blame on the design itself, not the driver. After that, every surplus manager got the same order: pull the M715 from the listings, no exceptions. What is left is a paper trail of bans and strike-throughs, a bureaucratic autopsy that proves the M715 was not just forgotten, it was erased. Today, you can't buy this truck at auction. Bureaucracy called it unsafe, but in the field, nothing else survives the way 10,000 pounds of analog iron can. No screens, no modules, just a single ignition wire between you and the end of the world. In a digital era of throwaway steel, the M715 remains outlawed proof that brute utility is what endures. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's see who still values real iron.